Hello, welcome. My name is Pete Anderson. I've been with the University of Florida for about 28 years. And during that time, I've experienced a shift in emphasis away from rabbit-eye blueberries to Southern Highbus blueberries that have been bred by the University of Florida. However, in the northern part of the state of Florida and in southern Georgia, the emphasis is still on the rabbit-eye blueberry, Vaccinium virgatum. This project was funded by the OREI program, and it included people with disciplinary expertise in entomology, horticulture, plant pathology, economics, and plant physiology. Basically, what we're attempting to do is establish best management practices for organic culture, where even though at the onset of this research, there was a small organic industry, we wanted to assess profitability. We had a lot of stakeholder involvement. We partnered with Georgia Organics. We met quite often with growers and extension agents. Probably the biggest problem we have, besides labor, is weed control. Kurt Rome mentioned how difficult it is in Arkansas. Well, try it in North Florida and South Georgia. It's about 10 times worse. And it's a 12-month of the year situation. So we did try about 7 or 8 different mulches. You have pine straw on the upper left, pine bark, which is most common, below. Both these materials provided excellent growth for our plants, but they also reduce the weed control. White plastic was tried as well as on mulch controls. And we had ground covers, wheat straw, peanut shells, landscape fabric on the upper right. These materials, although rabbit-eye blueberries don't require mulches, if you can keep the weeds out, the availability of mulches is a big issue. When you look at the price of establishing a blueberry planting with pine bark mulch, it could be about $30,000 an acre for the first year, just an establishment. The longevity of the mulches is an issue in terms of pine bark and pine straw. You might get about 2 or 3 years of benefit, and basically they're about 10 centimeters deep, ideally, or about 4 or 5 inches deep. Peanut shells we tried; they also work. Wheat straw works as well. And the bottom line is really availability. How far are you from a source of this material? Because when you start applying it on a per acre basis, it's very, very expensive. Didn't have too many entomology problems. In fact, of all the crops I work with in North Florida, the Vaccinium virgatum, the rabbit-eye blueberry, is probably the most sustainable. Also, it's the most amenable to organic production. We do have a few insect pests, thrips, leaf beetles, and galls, gall midge. The plant pathology limitations would be mummyberry in certain years and septorial leaf spot. But to be honest with you, you can grow them really without too much concern about the insect and disease, even in North Florida. There's different characteristics associated with each of the different mulches. Wheat straw, once a year you have to reapply. Pine straw, peanut shells required recharging every 2 years. Peanut shells had the advantage of being free. There's a lot of peanuts being grown in Georgia, and we did not have to pay for the peanut shells except for transportation. Pine bark lasted about 3 years, as did white on black plastic. Woven ground cover in our study only lasted 1 year, but really the nursery, the high quality landscape fabric will last much, much longer. Basically, we quantified the weed pressure with the different mulching systems. And as I indicated before, it's pretty much a year-round endeavor with weed control in southern Georgia and North Florida. We really don't have a break during the winter at all. One of the problems we had was the edge of these plants were grown on a raised bed, and the edges where the grass meets the mulch itself, that region had to be dealt with in terms of mostly in terms of weed eating and hand pulling. We've tried the Matratech, which is clove oil, and it works fairly well, and it is very expensive, but this is the method we basically use. We use hand labor to reduce the grasses on the edge. Probably the most significant problem we had in this study in terms of weeds was Bermuda grass. Again, this is a machine that we use to cultivate the edges of the raised beds, and it worked pretty well except when it made contact with plastic mulch and woven landscape fabric, and then it teared the material. Of course, as you all know, blueberries do best with a pH about 4.5. Our soils where this study was conducted, this is the Brightwell variety of blueberry, which is probably the most popular blueberry in southern Georgia. Our pH was 4.8, but the irrigation water pH was rather high, so we don't over-irrigate for sure. And as you can see here, the pine bark did the best in terms of keeping the pH down. Pine bark 4.1, pine straw 4.5, and higher for the ground cover and the control. We do have labor constraints in Georgia, especially since the recent legislation. We do not have labor available as much as we need when we need it, so we're looking at mechanical harvesting. Certain blueberries do much better at mechanical harvesting than others. So if you plan down the road to use this mechanical harvester, you need to plant the right variety. How much time do I have?
5 minutes.
Okay. As I indicated before, the Brightwell is the most popular variety. It's very high yielding. It is not extremely early. Now, at the very beginning of the presentation, I mentioned how in Florida now there's been a transition to the Southern Highbush blueberries. And the Southern Highbush blueberries are a cross of Vaccinium corymbosum, the Northern Highbush, by Vaccinium darrowi, a native blueberry we have in North Florida. The interest in the Southern Highbush is that they ripen extremely early. So we have a market window after chili, about mid-March through beginning of May, when nobody else in the country has blueberries. So getting back to this particular study, this Brightwell variety is a Rahbitite type, and instead of ripening in late April and May like the Highbush, the Brightwell ripens in June, mid-June. But basically, the pine bark treatment, when we looked at the three different mulches plus the control, the pine bark after year 7 shot up a bit, but you could not get away with having a non-mulch treatment with the Southern Highbush. They're very, very much more sensitive than the Rahbitite blueberry types. This is our postdoc for the program, Kieran Tertulliano. We noticed that you can alter insect feeding, insect abundance by mulch color. One thing that's been well researched over the last 10 years is the mulch effect, the mulch color effect on thrips. Now, thrips is a very, very small insect that causes a scarring on the berries. And in other systems, it transmits viruses as it feeds. But by controlling the mulch color, you can also reduce the population of thrips and leaf beetles. We didn't have a severe mummyberry problem in this study, but we did have septoria leaf spot. And basically what we used to control the leaf spot was fish oil, and it worked fairly well. The gentleman in the background is Harold Sherm. He was the plant pathologist on the project, and basically the Omega Grow and Neptune Fish Harvest are the fish oils we used, and they work pretty well. So the bottom line is economics. If you get a 50% premium on your organic blueberries compared to conventional, it is a viable alternative for growers in southern Georgia and North Florida. Net returns, not including investments, recovery of investment, fixed costs, and miscellaneous expenses was almost $6,000 an acre for conventional and about $8,000 per acre for organic. It can be done profitably. The issue is what kind of premium would you get for your organic fruit compared to the conventional fruit. That's the bottom line. What are the growers, what are they doing? What are they using in terms of mulch and cultural practices? Pine bark, wheat straw, white on black plastic, but of all the mulches, the pine bark is probably the most preferred. If you're close enough to a mill to get the material shipped at a reasonable rate. Growers are using Serenade for mummyberry and botrytis. Entrust spinosad compound is being used for leaf beetle and thrips, and fish oil for septoria leaf spot. The next challenge for southern Georgia and North Florida is to grow organically the more sensitive southern highbush types. Now in southern Georgia, I think there's about 500 acres of organic highbush blueberries, and in North Florida, I should say North Florida, in all of Florida, there's about 500 or 600 acres of the southern highbush that are grown organically. Georgia is a significant producer of organic blueberries. Our research has shown that it can be profitable, and the acreage of blueberries has risen from 10 to over 400. Now it's probably closer to 500 or 600 acres in Georgia alone. And the latest survey from Florida indicated that we have about 500 acres of the southern highbush as well. So that concludes my talk. Okay.
Are there questions for Pete about that?
I do have a question. You're talking about pine bark, or is that better to have it be aged? I'm from Maine. We grow wild blueberries, or they grow all by themselves. But I do have some high bush, and I also need to know if should it be just pine? Can I use other chips? I use whatever. We have a lot of mills around us. I take whatever they've got. Should it be fresh? Should it be aged? What's best?
The question was whether or not we should use aged pine bark. I would say probably yes. Now, the issue that we run into, especially on raised beds, if you have a very small particle size, it tends to wash off to the sides. So, and in one respect, the bigger nuggets are better in terms of staying where they're put. In terms of nutrition, an aged bark would probably be better than one that was freshly milled. And the growers in Georgia with rabbit eyes, it's an option. Mulches are an option. For southern highbush, it is not an option. You've got to mulch. In fact, with the southern highbush, what they're doing in Florida as well as Georgia, they're getting a 100-foot by 100-foot area, filling it with pine bark 1 foot deep, and growing the blueberries right next to each other for that whole 100-foot by 100-foot area. And that also helps in terms of frost protection, because the southern highbush, they bloom so early. It makes the entire culture of the southern highbush more economical.
Good question. A new Georgian variety with the exotic name of Oclocony has been introduced into Chile in the last 2 years. Do you have information about the quality of the fruits of this variety, Rahbiteves variety?
Yes, it was part of a study. Okay, I'm sorry. The question concerns the new variety Oclocony from Georgia. Carlos asked me if I have any data on that, and I don't have it with me, but I do have it. It's published, Florida State Hort Society, I believe, in 2007 or 2008. But I have your contact information, so I can get back to you on that.
One final question? Greenback.
Just wondering if you had to take any additional measures to manage pH, like running vinegar through the irrigation lines or anything like that?
Yeah, we haven't done it in our study here. The area that this study was conducted basically is close to the Okefenokee swamp, and the reason why we have industry there is that our native pHs are very low. If you need to keep it low and you have irrigation water that's high in pH, you have options to supplement your soil with, say, ammonium sulfate, use that as your nitrogen source, or and you can incorporate elemental sulfur as well. Of course, if you're organic, you cannot use ammonium sulfate. But people on large-scale commercial people doing the Southern Highbus, blueberries, hundreds of acres, for example, they have acidified water going in from the start. They use sulfuric acid. Okay, thank you.
Excellent presentation.